Hello everybody, I'm now in beautiful Ubud in Bali and I'm sitting here with Katchie Ananda. She is an international yoga and Dharma teacher. She's been practicing and been a trainer for over 25 years. She has had more than 10,000 classes. She's just released a new book called The Art of Awakening, and her life's work has been to explore the paths of yoga and share that with others. Hello, Katchie, how are you doing?
Thank you, Janika, very well.
Now we're at this beautiful villa in Ubud, and it's just spectacular. Can you tell us a little bit about this place?
Yes, so this is a non-for-profit called Satyagraha Ashram, and it's made all of bamboo. And my friend Therese, who is hosting me, is working with children and doing beautiful work in the world. So I'm very blessed to be here this week.
And you are too. I went to your class and I haven't taken that many yoga classes. I took a few 10 years ago, but this was my second now, and I just loved it because I felt like you came with so much wisdom. It wasn't just the poses, like you were talking to us in the class, and I got so inspired and I was thinking I just need to interview you to share this with you guys.
It's my pleasure.
Yes, so tell me about what has yoga, I'm going to start with a big question. How has yoga changed you? Starting this path, how has it changed you inside and perhaps changed the outside?
Right. Well, I started, a lot of people, with a really big ideal. I wanted to become, really good yogi, whatever that meant. I didn't really know. And a lot of that was actually the story of the donkey and the carrot. It's you put, if you want the donkey to move forward, you put a little carrot in front and he's never reaching it. So it felt kind of like that. Enlightenment was this big idea and nobody actually knew what it was. But nevertheless, I practiced and I did some damage to my body because I was very ambitious. It was all about the poses. I was doing too much effort trying to get into the poses, and I was up in Ashtanga at the 4th series, and I was practicing every day diligently, and then it started to feel like there was something not okay about this. And I love animals. I'm a big animal friend, and I started to view my body like an innocent little creature body.
Yeah, that's what you call it.
I call it that.
I was surprised by that, creature body.
It is. It's not, look, it's just like any other animal, right? It does whatever other animals do. It is the housing for my spirit, but it is a creature body. And I started to feel compassion with this little creature body. Why are we punishing our little creature body with this yoga, faster, pushing and sweating hard, and it's like training a dog with a whip, bad dog. No, you can also train a dog with kindness and love and make it fun for the dog. So I started to shift. I started to say, well, there's got to be another way of doing this. That actually your body is looking forward to doing yoga because it gets to release tension, it gets to play, it gets to experience the senses. It's not like going somewhere. When you go for a walk with the dog, the dog doesn't need to go somewhere. It just is happy to be outside, right? And it smells and it looks and it plays with other dogs like that. So the yoga I teach today is like that. It doesn't mean that you can't sweat, but it means it's more playful. You laugh, you cry, you have fun while you're doing it, and there's nowhere to go. And that's beautiful because then you walk out of the yoga class or your own practice feeling really nourished and really taken care of and loved. And that really is the influence of the Dharma. The Dharma is this whole Buddhist teaching that I learned from Jack Kornfield. And it's basically just explains how we can find the path of happiness. The Dharma means that you look at everything really closely and you say, does that make me happy? And you pay attention, and you realize oh wow, when I am forceful, then that doesn't make me happy. doesn't make my body happy, doesn't make, even when I'm responding with violence, that's not leading to happiness. So you investigate what is happiness, and you choose to take the path that is making you happy.
I'm wondering about yoga. You said that yoga shouldn't hurt at all, and that was really good for me to hear.
Yes.
Because sometimes we go into these classes feeling like we
Are not good enough.
Yes. Yes, and you talked a lot about that, and that was nice.
Yes. Well, especially in the West, we grew up, everybody grew up with I call it the not enough syndrome. People just think they're not smart enough, they're not beautiful enough. If you're a woman, most likely you don't think you are beautiful because you're not adhering to the standard, maybe your whatever is not perfect. And so you're like, oh my God, I'm not enough. And so because out of that not enoughness, we are frantic, we're crazy, we are trying to secure and control things that really don't need to be controlled. So, there was a student that went to a master and said, what's wrong with the world? And the master said, well, there's nothing wrong with the world. It's just that people are lost in thought. So it's you have this whole story up here, oh my God, nobody's going to love me. I have to work harder. I have to run around more and try to get more. And it's actually the very thing that creates unhappiness. So it's not so much about doing more. It's learning how to love more. You learn to love your body. And you can do that with learning to respect your body. So when there's a trend going on in yoga right now that says, just go into the pose, go up to the edge, and then push a little beyond. It's so stupid. The body doesn't need to be pushed beyond. The body just needs to have freedom of movement. It needs to let go of the tension around the joints. It doesn't need to be pushed beyond. The joints actually do not like it when you try to pressure them. I like to say the joints are on the endangered species list. So if you're pushing something beyond, your whole body actually tenses and says, oh my God, she's trying to hurt me. I better hunker down. I better tighten up. So no, you don't need to stretch beyond. You need to stretch smart. You need to learn how to engage the muscles, to go to the full expression of range of movement and keep that. So in a way you liberate the body. You don't need to push it. So that's how you learn how to respect the body. And once you do, then you learn to love it more. And then it becomes more fun and you don't have to do all these crazy things in order to prove yourself. And the funny part is then other people will love you too. So the very thing that you wanted in the first place and have been running around to get somehow by being more pretty or more smart, you get just because you learn to love yourself. So the whole spiritual path is really a path to learn how to love yourself. Love your body, love your crazy feelings. Sometimes you feel sad. Okay, today's sad day. It's raining. It's not a problem. It's raining. Oh, what will I do for me? I eat some chocolate today, or I take a bath. It's not a problem. It's nothing bad. You work skillfully with what is there, and you learn how to take care of what is given to you rather than trying to control it. And it's really time for the yoga to move out of the patriarchy.
Oh, interesting. Okay, what does that mean?
The yoga has been under the nail of patriarchy for a long time. All spirituality has. So both in the West and the East.
Okay.
Right? Well, women actually have a very easy entry to spirituality because they can bear children. Maybe the men are a little bit jealous because they can't give life like that. So they have been very controlling of only me. You need a priest to talk to God, right? Nobody can talk directly to God. No, but we can. God is everywhere. We are experiencing God in nature. So patriarchy has been controlling, and it's the difference. We call it a horizontal path versus a vertical path. So the patriarchy is a vertical path. It's like a ladder. You start at the bottom and you work yourself on top, right? Yeah. On top is God. It's probably a man in patriarchy. And then there come women. children, animals, earth. And it's not just from top to down, it's a value system. Men are better than women. Women are better than children. Children are better than animals. This is what we've been living, and that's why we're in the mess that we're in. And so now there's a new, like with the Tantra, there's a new path that it's about a horizontal path.
Tantra, you mean Tantra sex? Or
No, Tantra is not sex. It's a sex. A tantric sex is a certain aspect of Tantra.
Okay.
Tantra is a completely different thing. Tantra means to see the world as equal, to see the world as an expression of the divine. So it's Shiva Shakti are on top, like they're together. It's not men over women, but they're together. And then what we are seeing here, the elements are the final or the finite expression of this beautiful union between Shiva and Shakti. And this is what we have to recover in the yoga again. It has to become softer, more playful, more inclusive, less strict, less fundamental, less rigid.
I really like that, and I think it's so important to speak about it, because in Scandinavia I feel like the yoga is more like physical. It's more like you feel like you're gonna exercise,
Right.
and I miss the wisdom in it. Miss the wisdom in the classes, because then you do tend to think about that you're not good enough because you see all the other women who are just so flexible and everything, and then it's not about that.
Yeah.
And yoga is so much more.
Thank you.
And not that many know. I mean, people that are really into the path know about this, but I think there are many people out there who thinks of yoga as just this physical thing.
I know. It's okay. It's just because yoga has been hitting mainstream now, and so, but that's okay. You know, when there's a saying in India, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So when you're ready to like know more about yoga, you will find a teacher. They're out there. They're like me, you know. They're not famous, or you know, they're not like, maybe don't have, you know, 2 million followers on Instagram, but they're there. They've been practicing for 20, 30, 40 years, and they know about yoga. They have been living yoga. And so people, when they start getting curious and say, well, is this really all there is? Then they will find a new teacher. So I encourage everyone just to, when you are curious, well, ask around. Who knows something about yoga? Who can teach me more? Because yoga, like you said, is so much more. And all those things that yoga are known for, like, you know, feeling flexible or healthier, these are all just side products. The true yoga is that you enter into a communication with your inner wise self. My teacher calls this the one who knows. Everybody has an inner compass. Everybody has it, but for most people it's covered up. Like, they hear that voice of the one who knows, but then somebody says this and they believe that. So yoga is to make the one who know, that inner voice, louder, so that you have, like, you know what it's about. You have that inner compass, and yoga will give you that, like, to be in touch with that wise part of yourself.
So when did you start to connect with this wise part in yourself? Like, did it take years for you to really connect with it, or was it there all along, and that's why maybe you were inspired to go this path because you felt something?
Well, both. I had a very wise mother, so my mom was very wise, so I got a lot from her. But still, I was young, and I kind of got, like, you know, into the whole hype of yoga and more, bigger, better, faster. But then I started getting injured already when I was 30. And my first teacher was then Richard Freeman. And I remember coming to him and I said, oh my God, I'm a wreck, you know, like my shoulder, my neck, my hip. And he was like, good. And I'm like, what do you mean good? And he said, you still have time to turn it around. He talks very slowly. And he knows a lot about yoga. So I was lucky to have him. And then my other teacher, Jack Kornfield, is a Buddhist. That's my Dharma leg. He is just the most amazing teacher that is alive today. And they always talk about his teacher Ajahn Chah was talking about the one who knows. So I had the good fortune of encountering really good teachers. That's why it's so important that you do find somebody, not because they're popular, not because they are good at asanas. It doesn't matter, because you feel something here. That's probably the biggest advice I can give you. Don't choose your teacher from here. Choose it from here. Like, if the teacher makes you laugh, he makes you cry, she makes you cry, that's your teacher. That's much more important. You will get a lot more out of that than because the teacher is good looking or, can do crazy poses. So what? So what? Right? Is it going to be on your tombstone that you could do splits and things? Nobody cares. What your poses look like at the end. That's not yoga. Yoga is here.
So you feel like you have developed your intuition and your connection to like a grander intelligence through the yoga path?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we all have that inside of us.
Absolutely. And everybody feels it at times, but like I said, it gets covered up. Most people hear the voices of doubt and fear and anger so strongly that they don't hear what's underneath. I hear those voices too, but I know what they are. I'm like, oh, look, there's fear. Hi, how is it going today? Wow, you're really making a big dance today. All right, I hear you, I see you, but I'm still going to do it. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the mind and the no mind, because that is such a tricky thing, silencing your mind and understanding what voices are what.
Right. So it's not about silencing the mind. You will never silence the mind. That's also a misperception in yoga, is that you can silence your mind. I used to believe that. I was like, no, the mind can get quiet, like a sea. Sometimes the sea, on a lake, maybe you've seen it. Sometimes the lake gets really quiet on the surface. But sometimes it is very agitated, and your mind will be all of that. Sometimes the mind gets agitated. When I see something sad, my mind will get agitated. But with practice, and that's what the practice is, you see it for what it is. You don't mistake it for something else. You don't just react to it. You're like, oh wow, today sad. Okay. Sad. So it's called the Vipassana or insight meditation. You basically name things the way they are. And by naming it, there's an old story in the Tibetan tradition that says that when you know the name of a demon, it loses its power over you. So if you don't realize that you're angry, you're going to do angry things to other people. You're gonna you really hurt me, you did this and that, because you don't even realize you're angry. If you stop and you go oh, wow, that made me really angry, but you don't act on it, you just name it. You say, oh wow, I'm feeling really angry, but you don't act it out. You just sit with it for a while. You kind of learn things about yourself. Why did that make me angry? Why did that make me angry, but something else wouldn't? And you realize, oh, there's stuff in the background that goes back to so-and-so making me angry. So maybe I need to heal this pattern in myself. And it has really nothing to do with the other person. The other person just pushed a button. So you don't have to act it out. So you start to learn about your anger, and then you learn how to deal with it wisely. Maybe you will still go up to the person later and say, hey, that made me really angry. And we need to talk about this. But you're not going to slam the door or slap him, or you don't act out on your anger. So that is the method.
To name it.
To name it. The method is to see it and to name it. Say, oh, this is what's happening right now. And anything, it doesn't matter what it is, any feeling, any sensation, any thought, you simply bow to and you say, I see you. This is what's happening. Okay, I bow to that. And that is what develops wisdom.
Okay. But still, when you meditate, the practice is to silence your mind, right? No?
No.
I got it all wrong.
You got it all wrong, honey. Sorry.
All right. It's just to observe.
Yes. So sometimes, maybe on a lucky day, I've been meditating for a long time now. So on a lucky day, it is quiet, great. But that's not how it is always. You sit down no matter what. You sit down whether the sea is turbulent or whether it's clear. You just see it for what it is. So sometimes, like, you sit in the morning and you get what's called the planning mind. Like, your mind goes like, and then you have to call so-and-so, and then you have to do such and such, and it goes like blah, 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 blah. And you're like, oh my God, okay, planning mind. You just name it. You say planning mind. Sometimes you can write it down. Like, maybe, like, if you write it down, then your mind can stop, listing it, right? Like, okay, fine, mind, I'm going to list it now. So, and then it gets a little bit more quiet, but then all of a sudden something deeper comes up. Like, wow, that happened, like, you see, like, there's so many things that you see throughout the day. Like, I saw in Bali, right, I saw a cat that was hit by a car, and the other cat was standing over it, and it was hard, and in the moment, maybe you don't have time to feel it. But then later I sat down my meditation and the image came and I cried. I was like, oh, that really hurt. That poor little cat. And that other cat was mourning. So then I deal with that. I say, oh, sad, sad. Feeling compassion for the little creature that got hit. Sending some blessing for the little creature. That's what happens in meditation. You don't try to stop it. You try to, like, embrace it and say, okay, this is what I saw. This is what I feel. I'm acknowledging that. And that is what develops compassion. It develops wisdom. Everything comes from that. It's called, this mindfulness called the great medicine. So no, it's not about quieting the mind. It's just
that's
about
interesting that we have some concepts for many years, and then all of a sudden
they get blown to smithereens.
Yes. We go all around and like, no, I don't believe in that anymore. Now I think like this, and
great.
Yeah,
that's how it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get students, like, I used to, like, teach certain things in a certain way, right? And then I completely changed my mind about it. Like, oh my God, like, if you do chaturanga with your shoulders forward, you're going to get really screwed up shoulders. So for 10 years, I taught it like this. And then my shoulders were hurting. And then I looked around, I'm like, who can teach me how to? Richard could. It's shoulder loop. So in chaturanga, your shoulders need to be up and back. So then I completely changed how I taught. And why not? It's great. So, like, when the students come who had me as a teacher, I say, well, how was it? Thinking they're like, oh my God, you're like completely different person now. And they say, oh, you're exactly the same. They don't even notice that it's completely different.
Yeah.
So never stop. Like, if you have new information, you just stop believing that and now believe that. That's called evolution.
Yes.
And it's also okay to make mistakes. There's nothing wrong with make mistake. Like, the only problem that we have is if we make the same mistake over and over and over. Like, make some new mistakes every once in a while, and you're going to be just good.
Yeah, I know. I mean, life is change, and I think that's a humble approach, to be able to say, I've changed my style of practice, or now I do this.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about shamanism, because I mean you have studied so many different directions like Buddhism and other directions too, I believe, and also shamanism you mentioned in class, and I was a little bit curious about how you incorporate that in your practices.
It's funny that you're mentioning, because it's my third leg. I have 3 legs to stand on: yoga, dharma, and now shamanism. So shamanism is actually yoga in its essence is very shamanic.
Okay.
Very shamanic. All these practices, yeah.
They're all linked. They're all linked.
They're all linked. Shamanism is a way of dealing with the mind. Actually, a really beautiful way of dealing with the mind. So you can do shamanism by ingesting sacred plant medicine. But you can also, anything that will give the mind, it's like almost like you're hypnotizing the mind. So it's like sometimes the mind is compared to like a wild tiger, and you toss it something to eat. So that's like maybe you've heard mantra practice, where you take one mantra, Om Namah Shivaya, and you repeat it over and over and over and over and over and over. You've heard of that, right? That's a method to still the mind.
Yes.
So it's like you want to snag the mind. So it's like you give it something to eat, right? Or paying attention is another method, like just whatever. There are 4 foundations of mindfulness: the body, emotions, thoughts, and the Dharma itself. And you just pay attention to that. That's another method of concentrating the mind. Shamanism is when you are doing something like drumming, like something that's really repetitive, that lulls the mind, or like ingesting sacred plant medicine that just kind of puts the mind on a spin. The mind doesn't all of a sudden know anymore what's up and down. And that's when you get to realize other states of your being, which is beautiful, because then you all of a sudden realize, wow, you are part of this. Like that, you realize that in yoga too. It's like, oh, you mean this is not just about me? No, it's actually about us.
And you get that experience, and it's not just a thought.
No. And it's not just like we're all one. That I hate that when people say that, right? We're all one. No, we're not. Like, we're very different. There's a lot of diversity, and it's very hard. Like sometimes, like men, I can't understand them. Like they're such different creatures, you know, like they're like, really? This is how you process this? You have to like study, learn. Like if you are dealing with any creature, you know, you have to like be willing to study and listen. Even a dog, you have to learn its ways if you want to be a good dog owner. You can't just assume that it's like a human. It's not. It's another being. But underneath that, we're connected. And when you're getting the mind out of the way, because the mind likes to, it has the function of categorizing, labeling the functioning of the mind, right? And it's not a bad thing. It helped us survive. It's just in our tradition, we say the mind makes a very bad master, but a very good student, like a servant. So if you train the mind, if you don't let it run wild, you actually get a very fine instrument. Like you can kind of like put it aside when you don't need it, and you get absorbed in whatever it is you're doing, you're enjoying, you're in your senses, and then you need your mind again for something, you take it back. So, but it's not, yes.
Are you that conscious of it? Like
Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes I am, and sometimes I'm not.
It sounds amazing. I fall into thoughts all the time, and then I have to remind myself, oh, what happened?
Exactly, but that's what the practice is. Like that's what you're doing when you're practicing. You basically get caught up and you go for a little journey in your mind, and then all of a sudden you wake up. It's like, wow, look, I was just, God knows where, and you laugh a little bit. You want to take it with a little sense of humor, not so serious. Your mind is not a bad thing. Like it's like you see it with a little bit of humor, and then you see kind of through it. It doesn't like, it can still affect you, but it's almost like you observe yourself while you're going through it, So,
and did this give you a feeling of happiness? Because I think that's what many people want, to be more happy, find happiness. Is this a place where you find happiness, like observing the mind and knowing it's just mind chattering away, and then anchoring yourself into the present moment?
Yes, it is a way of being happy. I'm an extremely happy person until I'm very sad, and that also happens very often. See, you can't get the one without the other. So I am actually very sad also quite a lot. Like things make me, but not for me so much anymore. Like sometimes when my back is hurting, or then I'm, sad for me. But I'm sad for the world, like I'm sad to look at all the starving dogs here. I'm sad. It affects me. So you can't really open without opening to the whole thing.
Right.
So there's on one side I have more delight and more beauty, like touches me so deeply, and on the other hand I am more sad because it affects me. I can't just pretend I didn't see that. I did see it, And it affects, so both is true. You feel more, and you feel more compassion. That's why it is said that my method, the Dharma, the insight, the knowing what is, has to go together with the compassion. You have to develop compassion for yourself, for your own suffering, and for the suffering of everybody. And that's how you become a bodhisattva, meaning like you're just here to help relieve the suffering a little bit, to bring a little more beauty, and like maybe feed a dog. I've been wanting to go around with dog food for days now, but I've been so busy that I haven't been. But I'm hoping that I'll be able to just go around Bali with some dog food in my pack and just feed some dogs.
Yeah, there are a lot of starving dogs here. I know, especially here. I've never seen so many starving dogs.
You've seen them too, right?
Yeah. So I read actually on your site, one of your blogs, that every person meets 10,000 sorrows and 10,000 joys, no matter how much you practice. And I was like, really?
Yes.
So I guess it's all about not creating more suffering.
Yes, thank you very much. You're very smart. That's exactly it, Annika. It's exactly like that. So the Buddha distinguished two arrows. He said the first arrow is the 10,000 sorrows. Nobody can avoid them. It's old age, it's getting sick, it's having loss. It happens. If you live on this planet, you will have it. It's a planet of duality. You will have suffering. You will die. There's no amount of practice will save you from that. No enlightened master is not going to have that. They all die, they all suffer. The second arrow is what we do with it. We often have the tendency to make our suffering worse, or to even think like, oh, take it personal. It isn't personal. It's just how it is. If you could just like let go of it being so personal, it's just how it is here, and not make it worse. Like, when somebody says something to you that hurt, instead of saying like, wow, that really hurt, you yell at them. Like, you stupid, right? You create word, then you have a fight. So most of the time, as humans, we tend to make things worse. So the Dharma is like, let's not do that. Let's just learn how to have compassion for the suffering and do something smart. So when you're suffering, what do, right? Can you just give yourself a hug? Or can you give somebody else a hug when they're suffering? Not like who is right and who is wrong. Not get a big argument going. Oh, well, you are suffering now because, you didn't eat vegan. Or whatever, right? No, you're just suffering. Let me give you a hug. I feel for you. That's the correct response. And that is kind of that's the healing balm. But that also has to be developed with practice,
So last question, which is a big question. Your book is called The Art of Awakening, and I've interviewed a few people about awakening, and I'm still very curious about what it is, and maybe I'll never find out, or maybe I will when I die. But how do you define awakening? What is awakening for you?
Awakening is when we step out of the craziness of the mind. It's literally when we learn how to skillfully deal with the mind so it doesn't run the show. When we are where we are and we're just here, we are awake to what is. If it's beautiful, we're like, oh my goodness, thank you for this beauty. That we enjoy it. When it's terrible, when we see somebody dying, that I feel so much compassion. That to me is awake. Not justifying or rationalizing, not finding blame, who did it, who is responsible. Being awake and responding with what really is helpful. Because that's helpful. To have compassion is helpful for everybody. And to have gratitude is helpful. Instead of, like, most people have untrained mind is greed. Right? You can watch when you eat something pleasant, what happens. Like you have the spoon still in the mouth and you're already thinking about the next, right? It's greed. But if you can step back and say, wow, let me just taste this. Let me be awake for this. wow, so good, so tasty, or your latte, or whatever it is that you're enjoying. And thank you so much for this. That's being awake.
Thank you so much. This was beautiful.
You're welcome.
And good luck with your work and with your book. I just noticed that it's coming to Europe now. Your
Yes,
book.
you can actually order it in Germany and in Switzerland. It's for order, but we can't send it over to the States. But I'm in negotiation with a publisher, so hopefully it will get published in America too.
Okay, all the best to your work and thank you so much.
You too, Janneke, thank you.
And thank you so much for watching, guys, and remember to subscribe to my channel if you haven't before. Much light from beautiful Ubud in Bali. Bye bye.